Hello, Timothy Linsdau. I'm a video producer, a Christian, and border dweller, if you will. I only live a couple miles from the border. So issues continue on down there between U.S. and Mexico on the border and immigrants coming in. Checking out the something discovered here, an alarming and demoralizing border battle continues on gathering information versus harassing that's been reported. So what's going on again down on the border? It was a report that the border agents, Customs, Border Patrol, are harassing different agencies, say attorneys going down there, reporters, different activists from different immigrant support organizations, if you will, are reporting that they're being targeted by these border agencies and questioned over and over what they're doing. But the border agencies are saying it's a normal process that they follow by the law. Confirmation that the U.S. government has compiled dossiers and human rights activists, journalists, and lawyers interacting with the migrant caravans in Mexico. What really is setting this off is to me, the caravans coming up here in such large numbers. It's created a media circus, if you will, a media bonanza for stories to tell. These journalists cross the border to try to find out what's going on or to keep their shows on the air, however that goes. I hope it's more noble than that. Customs and Border Protection are calling it a valid duty to gather cross-border intelligence and investigate criminal activity that is being labeled as harassment by those being targeted. That kind of long-winded. So that's really what's going on. I think it's a typical battle between. Unfortunately, there are people who use this for self-aggrandizement to sell newspapers, to sell airtime, based on the tragedy of others, which really these caravans that have been coming up from Central America, these poor people, being encouraged by activists, possibly because they think if they put so much pressure on the border, they can get across and melt into the population of the United States, which happens. And the Border Patrol, Customs are charged with protecting the sovereignty, protecting the patrolling the borders of the United States to protect the country. That goes on. But then we can't have the FBI, the Border Patrol, Customs agents, targeting Americans in particular for harassment to try to force them to quit gathering information or helping immigrants to survive their probably mistaken journey up here. Gathering of information they say, is not necessarily surprising or objectionable. Alan Burston, who serves as the Customs Border Patrol Commission under President Obama, said that it's not unusual for them to be doing this kind of research. And they would be getting that kind of research of being Americans that are crossing back and forth. So it's, I suppose, easier for them to stop and detain these people and ask them what's going on. You're not going to see border agents going down on the Mexican side. I know of a couple that tell me they cannot go to Mexico out of fear for probably their lives. Not that everybody in Mexico is going to do that, but probably more likely cartels or people involved in illicit business, drugs, sex trafficking kids. I mean, atrocious stuff going on there. It's really terrible. But the critics have raised a concern of potential violations of Federal Privacy Act. In other words, First Amendment, freedom of speech. You don't want to, you don't want to do that. Our government is supposed to protect freedom of speech, not prevent it. But this isn't just covering news gatherers or reporters. This is also covering activists from different different immigrant groups that have been possibly involved in encouraging people to do this kind of rush that the caravans have been doing. Now, there was some time back, a few months ago, where they rushed the border. The border agencies reported there was rock throwing that can be quite dangerous, especially in large numbers. And the border agents fired tear gas to hold them back. Some, I don't know the exact number, got over the fence or through the walls. It's not actually a wall. It's more like a steel beams. But some got through, except for the oldest parts of the border, which isn't much more than landing mat. If you've ever seen landing mat, it was something used to create instant airfields. So it's another story. But anyway, some got past, got over the border, but they were captured and sent back. Of course, there's great danger when that happens. If people are throwing objects, anybody could be hurt. If they run into the freeway, we've had those tragic accidents. People running on the freeway getting hit. I mean, it's horrible, but it happens. But the border agents are trying to stop that out of control behavior because it's danger to everyone. But that's what the argument is. You know, are they preventing freedom of speech? You know, news gathering, reporters trying to find out what's going on for the benefit of everyone, or are they just doing it for their own gain? That's up to others to judge. I'm just pretty much doing the same thing here, trying to gather information to see what's going on. The border authorities said 2 incidents prompt the agency to identify people who may have information as instigators or organizers of the attacks on the border, which is standard law enforcement. So if people are creating riots, if people are throwing things, trying to injure agents, of course, by law, they're going to be investigating this to try to find out if it had anything to do with Americans in Mexico working to instigate any of this behavior. That seems only normal to me. I can also see Americans' fear of the government abridging our freedom of speech. So is this news gathering on the parts of the reporters being abridged by the agencies trying to prevent further injury or law breaking, if you will, by others? And that's what they say they're doing. One example has to do with attorneys going into Tijuana to speak to clients in shelters. They're stopped and questioned. Burson had said several interrogations reveal that individuals had nothing to add over time. But, excuse me, because these people are crossing the border so many times, they're also available to be questioned because they're back and forth. And the border agencies at the border have, by written law, the opportunity to stop anyone and question them. They have that by law. It's not an accident that was done. A few years ago, I made a film on Otay Mountain Wilderness Area that had a lot to do with the Border Patrol. You can find it on Amazon, Otay Mountain Wilderness Area. And I was told then by agents that they can go anywhere within 25 miles of the border to protect the sovereignty of the United States of America. Now, I would have found that a big surprise, except I've had a border agent come into my house to grab an illegal alien who was there out of my own ignorance. I was trying to help him make a phone call. They didn't bother me because apparently they'd been watching this whole thing all along in the first place and knew I was just a rube. But anyway, fortunately, nobody was hurt. But it was a heck of an experience. It just came right in my house and boom. So apparently on the border, from what I can read, it's they have a lot more options, you will, to enforce the law. But, you know, journalists got to keep an eye that the government agencies aren't out of control either. And I see that. and hope that they're doing the right thing and that the agencies are doing the right thing. So this alarming and sometimes demoralizing situation continues on the border. It's a tough thing. People want to get into the United States, and our government is charged to protect us from invasion, or however that goes. So there you are. I'm Timothy Linsdau. Like and comment on my videos, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.